Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Maureen Scanlon, and I am a master life coach. And this is my segment, A Moment with Maureen. And our podcast is I Never Knew, but My Dog Did. So, welcome. You can tell I have a different sounding voice, and I'm not thrilled about it, but I am going to be going through some speech therapy and more surgeries and all that stuff. So, the reason that I am doing these moments with Maureen and not guest episodes is uh, due to my health issues because I may cough, I may clear my throat, I may not even last an hour, but it's still I want to bring you important content and ideas and help. That's my passion is to help people to get through this life and everything that, we're presented with and that we have to go through. So I'm especially happy today. I just had a visit from my high school bestie. And I have another bestie coming today. So I dropped one off and I have another coming. And it's interesting. I always tell you how important I think your circle is. And these two ladies, I can just be me. And we literally go back to being 15 years old again. And we're just who we are no matter what life has done to us. And we're over 50, we're all over 50 and it's fun to act like teenagers again when we're around. So my friend Christy just came and my friend Laura will be coming today. So I'm especially excited. And what's really cool, I tried to get Christy to do this podcast with me and she wasn't comfortable and I didn't want to make her uncomfortable. However, that being said, she was super helpful when it came to this subject. She was a director in IT analytics at a very large corporation, medical corporation, in Arizona. And so she helped me understand things because you all know I am technologically handicapped. And that's a Gen Xer thing for me. And I'm sure there's a lot of Gen Xers who are really great at it, but oof, I'm so old school. I'm so old school that when we were working on the content, and I was asking her questions. She literally said to me, "Are you writing this with a pen and paper?" And I said, "Yes, I am," because I'm just old school like that. So it's hilarious, and that's what brings me to the topic of today. So I want you to think about this. Think really, really hard because we're not going to get away from it. I think it's kind of like when the microwave came along and then the VCR and man, am I dating myself? And then, push button phones and then, cordless phones. And it's just, you want to try to sometimes fight this progress that we have, but then there's reasons why it's really great. So that's kind of what we're going to discuss today. But being that I am a life coach, I'm gonna really hone in on, some of the emotional truths of this and healing perspectives and real human connections. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to ask you, what if a video of you existed and you never made it? What do you do? What do you do? And for those who understand technology, I'm sure your mind just went to, well, I'm going to find out who did it. I'm going to, research and get to the IP address and, that sort of thing. But then there's people like kind of on my side, like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't know. What do I do? What do I do? Do I put out a disclaimer that, hey, this isn't me? So in this powerful episode today of I Never Knew But My Dog Did, we're going to dive into one of the most urgent conversations of our time, AI, deepfakes, and the fight for truth in a digital world. And I'm going to be a little bit technical, but not to the point where I am in any way, shape, or form an IT analytics person or even close. Okay. So I think I kind of find I fall in the middle, I think. So listeners who I just adore, I know I've got this great variety of those who were born into the technology. And then I have, the Gen Xers and the boomers who are like, yeah, it's something I can't fight. I'm learning it slowly. And some things I enjoy, some things I don't. Some things are very frustrating. I fall on the frustration scale often. And my husband's, his office is across the hall. You can see my window right there if you're on video. Outside these doors, right across the hallway is my husband. When I'm not doing a podcast, those doors are open, and my poor husband, he just hears grunts of frustration. The example of what I sound like is, "Oh, you stupid thing." That's the example. I might maybe have some not so nice words that I might drop a little, maybe an F-bomb every now and then. But oh, it just frustrates me when I'm one of these people, when I get in my car, I want to turn the key and I want it to work. Well, I kind of in the same way when I'm driving my technology, like this needs to just work. And I don't want to have to do all these 25,000 different steps just to get something to work. So that's where we kind of are. But what's really the topic today is this lack of connection or this lack of knowing and trusting what's real and what's not. And that's scary. And we're going to touch on a lot of like, you know, if you've had trauma in your life, because being a life coach, I'm here to help with, healing and intuition and mental health. And so this stuff applies. This stuff actually really, really applies. And so there was a time when seeing meant believing. And what happens when what I see isn't the truth? And do I question everything or do I question nothing? And that's where we are for many of us, especially anyone who's been through emotional pain. Not trusting what we see or feel isn't new. And so I want to really help you learn what to trust by following some steps and really getting back into intuition, which, intuition is that gut feeling of something being off or not right. So we're going to get into um, kind of a high bird's eye view level of what deep fakes are. And so what deep fakes, how they're being used is when someone uses your video, your picture, your audio, and it's generated to look real, like it's you. So if someone took this video and then they added audio, but they can talk to AI and say, sound like Maureen. And they can actually create something that looks like I did it. And that to me is scary. And the reason that it's scary is because I don't have a way to reach everybody that sees it. We are a 30-second society. And so you saw this on TikTok for 30 seconds, you believed it was me. You're not really investing time in figuring out whether that was me or not. And so, how it affects me, I love something that Christy had told me that I thought was really, really cool. She's telling me, how to identify things that are more real or that are real and that aren't real. And some of the clues are this. TikTok and Instagram, I noticed, usually put a little, not really a disclaimer, but it'll say in tiny print under your video, AI generated. And so then I like look at it and honestly, I kind of scroll by when it's AI generated because I'm a connection person and I like authenticity, realness. So it does turn me off. And so look for that. Now they're not always going to do that. And that was something that Christy and I discussed is the fact that she said, look for glitches. So you'll see like, she was talking about someone who was making these coffee tables with, what is that called? Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, what is that? Resin coffee tables. And like they were making one with bottles. And when they put the resin in, Christy was saying, the label was off. It looked like the bottle was full. You would never do that. You would never use a full bottle. She said there'll be fake lettering. She said even sometimes you'll see like someone has six fingers, so stuff like that. So, be very, I guess, discerning. I guess I mean, if you want to be. If it's someone making a coffee table and you don't care, cool, bypass it. But what if you're getting advice? And that was one of the things that we sort of did in a little experiment, Christy and I, and I'm going to tell you about that later when we worry maybe that AI is taking over, human jobs, human connection, personality, careers. And we looked at what it would say about life coaching. Like, could you be life coached by AI? And the good news is no. But we're going to get into what it said. And I thought it was really cool. So, one of the things she mentioned was a human in the loop, which I absolutely love that. I, oh, that just like makes my heart happy. No matter what, throughout time, I don't care how much technology we have, we've got to have a human in the loop. And that's the key to being humanity and progressing and having connection. So for me, the connection of having a human in the loop. And what that means is you have AI on one side, and then you have the information on the other side, and you need a human in the middle to validate the information, review the information, um, take or discard information that's given. Like if it doesn't track, you can, delete that. It's a system where a human actively participates in the operation, supervision, or decision making of an automated system. Human involvement. So think about that. Look at how important those words are that I just used. Validate, review, discard, um, participate, decision making, supervision. Like think of how important those things are that only humans can do because AI is literally just a storage of information, right? So they don't have the decision making or the emotional background um, to decide if this information was true or not true. It's also to have a human in the loop is to ensure accuracy, safety, accountability, and other decision making. For instance, a doctor cannot take notes from AI. He cannot put in, oh, I have this patient, this age, this is his background, and these are his medications. Legally, he cannot because he's the human in the loop. He has to be the decision maker. And yeah, maybe he can take some of that information that AI is giving him, and which is fantastic because it's almost like this fast track to, sitting for hours on Google and trying to find information. And we're going to get to that. So what we've always done versus what we're doing now or what's being done for us, I think there's a lot of pros. The negatives is, you know, and this is something I'm going to address in a couple of other episodes about, say, influencers. You see these influencers, and then you see um, the truth of who they really are in the background. And it creates this content to appear that they're perfect, which creates insecurity in those are watching it. And then when we're exposed to the scandal that these humans have done in the background, it really creates this mistrust, right? This is a big thing that I know my grandson said. He said it's really tough with all that information that's available to them. It makes it difficult for decision making, especially when you're younger and you haven't made a lot of adult decisions or very crucial decisions. So I thought that was really interesting. It's harder to decipher because technology is advancing. I believe there's a loss of creativity because as an author, ugh, I'm watching a reality show where one of the reality stars is writing a book. I haven't seen her sitting down and typing or writing once. All I've seen is her taking a photo shoot for the cover. So what's happening is they have these ghostwriters and this AI writing their book for them. And that's frustrating to me. It's not personal. When you read my books, even my children's books are so personalized about, my pets and my granddaughter. And then my nonfiction books, you hear my story, you hear my emotions, you hear my history, my reactions at the time. And you can't ghostwrite that. You can't grab, AI is not going to grab emotion and know what I felt like at that time. So I wouldn't want readers to read a book that I didn't write. What's the point, right? That to me, that's a textbook. Um, so to me, that loss of creativity and also that lack of authenticity. How do you trust me? If you read my book and I had it ghost written, why would you want to come to me as a life coach? Because it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like I would know what to do or how it felt to be in your situation. So why would you want to get coaching from me? So it's very interesting and it makes me sad. I don't want AI to be taking over who we are as individuals, and we are all such fun, creative, different, people. Like, I don't want us to become iRobot. I don't want us to all become the same person and let computers run our lives and take out all that, emotion and creativity and even weirdness. It'll take the weirdness out of you. Some of the words that Christy and I were looking at that you can kind of tell some signs that are a really good indication. And, because otherwise we're dehumanizing or devaluing our authenticity, right? Um, so some of the keywords, and I had to laugh because she pulled these up and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. You're so right. Especially in the workplace. Stop doing that. If you're a boss, supervisor, stop using AI for reviews, for whatever. Be authentic. Tell a person what you really think about them, what you've seen. It matters more to me if you tell me how you feel rather than just some blank letter, dear blank, and you just put my name in and then you put my coworker's name in. Like it just doesn't feel the same, right? So some of the keywords to look for that are used pretty often, this is not inclusive, but this is fantastic, is furthermore. I don't know how many people say furthermore, and please don't come for me. We don't use furthermore. We may use also. I think also is a very common human thing to, oh, here's more that I want to speak on. And I could see a human saying, in addition to, that's fine. I don't know that we use this furthermore. I feel like that's very, very old school, proper English, and I don't think a lot of us conversationally do that. And the other one, similar to that, is moreover. I don't know that I've ever used moreover in a conversation, and I'm a vocabulary nerd. I love, I love a different word to describe something that we use often. I like what's there's one that my father used and we would giggle about it. Emotional. If I'm emotional about something, like the word verklempt. I am verklempt over that. And we would laugh at it because it's sort of a hoity-toity speech, which in my family we weren't hoity-toity, but we were. My mom very much valued vocabulary, and I'd say, "Well, what does that mean?" And she would send me to a physical dictionary to go look that word up. And I really love that she did that because she built in me this love for vocabulary. But now we've got AI doing that for us. Like, do our kids have to go to a dictionary and figure out what a word means? No, they don't even have to worry how it's used, where it derived from. They're just letting AI do everything for them. And that's sad. I'm not saying that they're not intelligent because there's a different level of intelligence they have to use to do things with the technology, but I kind of like the old school, we had vocabulary, we had comprehension, we had spelling. Um, do our kids really have to do any of that now? No, because the computer, s- spell check will correct your spelling for you. If you're looking for a word, Google, find me a word, a synonym to this word. Boom, it comes up with it. So I think there's a little less, um, maybe mechanics and processing that we had to do, in older generations versus the technology generations that I think they're missing out on. I mean, they're probably like, we don't care. That's not something we want to mess with. But I don't know. I feel like in the end, if everything's shut down, wherever you are, there you are. And oh, if we didn't have electricity or computers, I'd still be able to use good words. But I would never use moreover, because it's just not in my wheelhouse. And then the other one is interesting. Delve. Let's delve into that. Now, I would probably use that in a podcast and say, well, let's delve into so and so story. That's not so far-fetched that I wouldn't use delve. But you can kind of tell in an AI, letter or paper or whatever it is, you can tell certain words are like sort of trying too hard, and that's kind of an AI hint. The other thing she did tell me is that things look like they're cut and pasted. And that one kind of took me back because I'm like, gosh, I really am gonna have to focus a little more on how things look cut and pasted. So, you know, I think there's great things about technology, and I'm gonna, talk about some of the good things. And then I'm gonna sort of even it out with, what it can cause and how we can help ourselves mentally, with our mental health and our emotions and all those fun things that we're going to get to. So, here are some good examples. So currently, you all know I'm going through some serious health challenges. So I've had thyroid surgery, removed half my thyroid. I've had two neck surgeries on my spinal neck, my cervical neck. And from those two surgeries, I had two very serious um, additional surgeries for hemorrhaging and hematoma. And so it's been a struggle. And that was five surgeries in, less than a year. Um, and unfortunately, I have another one coming up for not neck related, but as urgent, involving um, my pelvic area, my bladder. So that's coming up. And then I also have now been referred to a neurosurgeon who will be doing revision surgery for my failed neck fusions and possibly higher up some things that are affecting my brain and my neurological issues that came from these neck surgeries. So long story short, I got a lot of medical stuff going on. But here's the problem. The problem is, and I think I've spoke about this in the last couple of moments with Maureen, is that we have specialists. Specialists are fantastic. You got your primary care physician, PCP, and then your PCP says, well, and then under your PCP, you also have a physician assistant or PA, and you also have a nurse practitioner or an NP. So you have all these three in your PCP office, right? In your main office. And then from there, you're going to get referrals for specialists. So, you need to have your PAP. You need to go to the gynecologist. Well, your gynecologist is going to address gynecology stuff. You have like me, ortho. Let's refer you to an orthopedic surgeon. Well, when your orthopedic surgeon is done with you, even if you have other issues, they're done with you. Now we got to go to the neurosurgeon or the neurologist or, those kinds of things. I have to go have an x-ray, swallow test because I have dysphagia from all the scar tissue from the surgery. So now I have a speech therapist and so on and so forth. So here's the problem that I have found. Everybody stays in their own lane. that there is no like meeting where everybody comes together. Let's have a Zoom meeting and talk about Maureen. Let's talk about Marines issues. It doesn't work like that. Now, I did learn there's something called functional medicine, and there are medical professionals in integrated medicine, which I'm so thrilled that I learned about that. And I learned about that from an ER doctor of all places, because he now is leaving the ER and going into that type of medicine for the same reason that I went in there, which was I just have all these things that may or may not be related, but I needed to be looked at as a whole and not as these individual pieces by the specialist. So here's the cool part. I got tests. My PCP ordered, CT. My ortho doctor ordered an X-ray. I went into the ER, they had a CT done. And so I have all of these results, but no one's looking at all the different results, especially if you have a group. So say you have your insurance says, well, you can go to this group. I'll use an example in Arizona, they have Banner Health. So if your insurance says you can only go to Banner Health, well, that's a little bit better because their system, their portal will share information. But in my case, my orthopedic surgeon is not in the same group. My rheumatologist is not in the same group. My gynecologist is not in the same group. So the only people that can see information are those that are still in that same group. So I'm printing copies of x-rays and summary notes and, yada, yada. So what I did was in AI, put in my x-ray results. I just did a little screenshot, my MRI results report, and then I put the MRI in there and I put in my symptoms and my history. Okay, I had this surgery, this surgery, this surgery. It was the absolute coolest thing. And Christy told me this is really important. When you're doing AI, make sure you tell it how you want it to view you. So in other words, she said, you have to tell it to say, in the words of a doctor, here's all of my information. Tell me what you think. So it's going to come back as a doctor is speaking to you. Now you can also say, as a layperson who doesn't know anything about medical stuff, tell it to me in really easy terms. And then she also, it's really funny. She set her AI up to be brutally honest. And I was like, I don't think I want my AI that brutally honest, but it was honest. And it was so cool because I got information from AI that was as if I had a functional integrated doctor who looked at all the pieces and said, don't do PT, don't do this. You deserve a second opinion. Here's what's going on. Here's your top three things that need to be eliminated. Here's the tests. You need to tell your doctors, hey, let's look for this. I need this test to make sure my fusion worked. I need this to make sure the nerves are okay. It was fantastic. And I love that so much. And I was able to bring that to all of my doctors and say, hey, could you order this? Or, hey, this is what I think is happening. And it was fantastic. So in that way, it's like 10 steps past what we used to do. First step was WebMD. Everybody remembers that WebMD, I'm sure, where, every symptom that you had was like the worst thing, like you're going to die tomorrow. So WebMD was terrible. And then, and then Dr. Google, you go into Dr. Google, and if you put your words in, which Dr. Google has actually been pretty helpful too, but not as helpful as an AI algorithm or an AI system where, the important thing here is I'm putting PHI, private health information into this. And so one of the most important things when it comes to privacy and making sure your information is protected is to pay for the chat GBTs or what was the one that she mentioned? Claude, Claude. That's another AI system. Do yourself a favor. It's a very minimal amount to pay to protect your information. So when you have a system that, because everybody can use it for free, but when you pay for it, there's a little more elevated protection of your information, and so it's worth it. And let's do that. Just like protecting your identity, you have these companies where, you pay them to monitor your credit report or monitor your ID, your identity. And it is usually you have to pay for that. Or some of it, in my case, like my credit card, does that for me. But I'm still semi paying for it because I use the credit card. So that was really good advice that she gave as well. Something that I find interesting, and this is something that wow, was really, really good, is that and this is bad or good, but it is also helpful. So she was telling me there's automated systems now. So for instance, if you are, everybody knows this is not the days of writing out a job application and dropping it off, at a business, to the manager themselves. That doesn't happen. So now it's all automated. And the automation is set up for for eliminating or accepting certain qualifications, right? And they're looking for certain words or qualifications. And one of the things that Christy had told me was an automated system will reject an application for a job, even if you are fully qualified for that position. It's how it is set up to review your resume. And so the cool thing about AI is you can send it to AI. AI can analyze what the automated system is using to eliminate or accept and will help you to adjust your resume to what they're looking for, which is, I know, mind blowing. Again, I'm so high level technology, but you get that. We don't know how programs are written or what keywords are needed, but AI does. AI is very familiar with, for instance, depending on what position it is, they know the keywords for that position and they'll help you tweak, your resume and your past experience. And why don't we do this? It sounds better if we say this. And, the days of, I worked at McDonald's as a cashier and turning it into, I handled, millions of dollars daily from clients. I mean, we used to embellish, but now AI really is just saying, here, just facts, ma'am, make sure this is on your resume. So I thought that was really cool. The other thing I thought was really, to me, this is for you know, anyone who's getting older or mental health struggles, for instance, like menopause. Menopause gives you brain fog. And I think I was talking to my daughter, and she has PMDD and she gets brain fog from PMDD. And that's premenstrual, I can't remember the two D's. This dysphoria disorder, I think. But she'll get brain fog and just needs to just relax and can't really think. Also, all my fellow ADHDers out here, ADDers, I have the hardest time, being able to take a thought as I've gotten older and let it come out eloquently the way that I want it to sound. So what it does is it helps me with better articulation and it helps me complete that thought. Where someone will answer your sentence, you'll say, "What is that word?" I feel like, and someone will answer it and you're like, "Yes, exactly." That's what AI can do. And to me, oh my gosh. It has really, really helped me. And I don't know, like I had some stroke symptoms, possibly a TIA back in December. I don't know if there was any residual in my cognitive or whatever. But as I get older, we all get older and we get forgetful. We get kind of foggy and forget simple words that you used on a daily basis all your life. So it is frustrating. But again, like I said, if someone's, if you're having moments of being manic. If you're bipolar and you have like manic moments or depression moments and you're just not on top of your game, they can help you. AI can help you express what you want to say, how you want to communicate. And I think that's a fantastic piece of AI. I really do. So let's get to um, we talked about how deepfakes are used. We talked about why it's getting harder to tell if it's real, how to, use some of those hints. Let's talk about the emotional and psychological impact of trust, because this isn't about technology, it's about trust, identity, and the future of human connection. And, you know, let's remember when it comes to trauma, right? Any of us who've been through trauma, myself included, uh, I remember, especially in the relationship area for me and the abuse areas for me were in relationships. When I would go out into the dating world, I never trusted myself. I couldn't trust myself to see the truth in someone, or I'm so empathic and I'm kind of a hopeless optimist that everyone has good in them, and I had to kind of stop doing that. But the way that I did that is the way that I'm going to ask you to do that, because whew, you know self-doubt, confusion, and in a world where reality can be manipulated, your wounds can be triggered for those of you who have had trauma. And so we're going to talk about some of the things that we can do and find my notes on this. So, when AI takes over, it gives us this feeling of this loss of control. And that is a trigger for trauma, because when we went through something, we didn't have control over what happened to us. And it really felt these things were happening to me. As you heal, you start saying, oh, wait, that happened for me. But when you're in it, and then you get triggered where you can't trust yourself or you don't trust other people, it's just this back to this sort of cycle of feeling out of control. And then there's confusion about reality. So when you have confusion, that is similar to gaslighting. So if you've ever had anyone gaslight you, which is, making you question yourself, making you think that you are crazy, it's a you problem and you need to fix it, even though it's a they, the problem. And that's a really, really scary thing. So that's AI doesn't cause trauma, but it can activate these unresolved patterns, feeling unsafe and hyper aware. I don't want to scare you. This is not to scare you. This is to give you power, and I love to empower people. And knowledge is power, right? So feeling unsafe or hyper aware, like, I don't even want to be online. I'm not going to even go on the internet. We don't want that kind of reaction. And that could happen if you've been in trauma and it's unresolved. You could be like, I'm just too scared. I don't even want anything to do with it. I'm not on any social media. I've heard people say that. And it's like, there are things in life that we take chances on. We do have risks. There's risks and rewards. I do believe technology has its rewards, but it does have its risks because, like Christy not wanting to be on the podcast, it's interesting. It made me think, oh wow, well I'm out there. People could do that to me. I could have like deep fake stuff all the time. But then I had to do that trauma thing too, where I had to sit back and go, wait, I'm fine. I'm fine. There's nothing so bad that if someone made a video of me that I couldn't come back and say, oh, by the way, there's this video out there. It's not me. And it could harm your self-esteem, your reputation. I don't want my reputation ruined. I love what I've built, my brand, my marketing. That is why Taylor Swift is actually copywriting her likeness and her voice, because that happens a lot to celebrities. They get these of course they do. Someone can make a product with her face on it, and if it's not copyrighted, they can get away with it. And they can make her song using her voice and telling AI, here, recreate this and make this song of Taylor. So I get it. If you're a celebrity out in the public eye, I'm just little old me. So please don't deep fake me, okay? But I am, I'm in that acceptance phase of, you know what? If I'm gonna do this, there's always this chance that someone's gonna step in. Um, I have a crazy ugh, ex snake is what I call him. He doesn't even deserve to be called, as far as human. He's not even a human. He's just a snake. And he pops his head out every now and then and gets into one of my social medias and says, really dumb, hateful things. And I really don't care because I don't care enough to give him my emotional reaction. And I think that's kind of what we need to think about with technology is, you know what? Don't give it energy it doesn't deserve. Right. And so I've done this with this snake for, my God, I don't even know how long. I think it's been 15 years since I 86 him for my life, but he has nothing better to do apparently. And so I always say the snake came out of the hole again this year. So, but I don't want to give him the energy, even talking about him right now. Ooh, it gives me the ickies. So let's talk about what is important. So your intuition disconnect. When you're already, trauma can already weaken your trust in yourself and your decision making and your what you see and what you don't see. And AI adds another layer. If I can't trust what I see, can I trust anything? And that's what we call a cognitive distortion, where we universalize or we generalize. There's one thing I can't trust, but now I can't trust anything. And so we don't, with those, that's cognitive behavioral therapy. We don't want those cognitive distortions to cause panic, and bring off those old cycles and habits from living in excuse me, a survivor mentality where there wasn't, I know when I was in survivor mentality, there wasn't a lot of time to analyze. I think that was the biggest takeaway. Like now I can analyze everything and I'm happy and I'm content and I make good decisions. But when you're in this survivor mode, you're literally just like full speed ahead, hyper focused on just getting through each day. And I feel you for anyone who's going through that. I'm wrapping my arms around you right now. I have goosebumps. It's hard and it is not your fault. And you can overcome that. You can, I promise you can. You can learn to trust yourself again. And one of the biggest ways is how you are feeling things and sensing things. So all of us have this intuition, it's built into us. And we all have a visceral response to things. We have a gut response, an emotional response, a thought process, to things that are sort of danger, your heart guard. I always talk about your heart guard. But when something doesn't feel right online, intuitively, like good example, I have fallen for a couple of times some marketing offers. And one of them that makes me so mad, and I should shout him out, and I don't know the company name again, but we were going to the American Library Association's convention in Philadelphia last year. They were supposed to, and I paid them a good amount of money. They were supposed to display my books at their booth at the ALA conference. I gave them the money and I could not get a hold of them. I gave them all of the marketing information they needed, descriptions of my books, and I paid for not one book, but I paid for three stinking books, and I got nothing back. So I'd been ripped off on that. I had been ripped off on, I did a radio program and it was supposed to be shown I forget, there was a certain amount of times they were supposed to promote my radio show, and three times. It was $500 per play, and I paid 1,500 out of New York. I can't remember the name of that company either. But I have done that. We are not alone in this, everybody. If you've been scammed, that's the fear of that being out of control, or, not making decisions that you feel like you can trust yourself. But it's also learning. Now I don't fall for that. It cost me, some money, unfortunately, but it also taught me I can trust some people, because some people I've had great at stuff. I've had where what is there's a book promoting company that, puts ads on. They make little banners of my books, and then they promote it on, X, and they promote it on Instagram and Facebook. And there's so many, you get so many promotions per week, like 50 promotions a week. And it's been great. And it was a great price, and they did not let me down. So it's using that intuition. So if I see something come across my desk now where they're like, "Hey, Maureen, we want you to go do this speech," and I've had this too. We want you to go do this speech, especially recently, in this women's conference in Paris. Now, let's be real, that sounded really fun, right? If I didn't have all the health issues, I probably would have just jumped right on that and said, "I'm going to Paris and I'm going to talk to all the French people about loving yourself." But then I learned from my past experiences to say, what is paid for? How much marketing is there? Am I just going to watch people, or am I going to actually speak to people? Is this recorded? Is this live? So you learn to be way better at, asking questions and clarifying and really pushing the button. Because when you've been through, some traumatic experiences and you've been controlled by others, asking questions is scary. And you just want to make yourself small and be like, okay, that sounds really good. But this is a good learning lesson, that ask questions. Ask questions. You have every right to ask as many questions as you want. If someone doesn't want to answer them, that's your answer right there. But that tuition is follow that intuition. Your gut will never let you down. Your head sometimes lets you down. Your heart definitely lets you down. But go with your gut, because your gut will give you that twinge of, I don't know. If it's not a yes, it's a hell no. I think everybody has heard that saying, right? If it's not a yes, it's a hell no. Um, and so, in summary of that, because of I love the puppy so much, think about how dogs do not rely on visuals, or auditory. They don't need words. They don't need to speak words, right? So they read energy, tone, presence. They're not fooled by appearances. I don't care what you look. A dog does not care what you look like, but what does your energy feel like? And so that would be a really, really great way to help you moving forward in the world of AI. And again, use it for what works for you. I mean, that that medical experience that I had it was life changing. I couldn't in the real world go to a doctor who could cover all those things that I needed covered. And yet I did this with AI, and they got to look at the big picture of everything I had going on. And then I'm able to look at it and go to my doctor. My doctor was like, "Whoa, you're really been doing some research." Of course I have. Yes, I have. No, I haven't been doing research actually. Uh, really good forums. That's another thing. AI is good for bringing links forward that are good to follow up on. So when it comes to health, I looked up people who had failed ACDF surgeries, such as myself. And it was so cool because I got people from Mayo and Cleveland Clinic, and, the variety of experiences that everybody had had, where it's like, "Oh, I had mine, 2 years ago and I'm still in pain," or "I had mine, 6 months ago and I'm doing myofascial, massage." And it was so fantastic. I felt so much less helpless. because like I said, empowerment, education, learning, teaching yourself. It's empowering. A doctor cannot come back to me and say something I'm that I do not know about what has happened, with my spine. So that's cool. That's empowering to go in and be able to say, no, I don't believe that to be true. Or can you try this? I've heard this works. So my advice to everybody is, empower yourself, learn, and the more you learn, the more you trust. And so maybe healing isn't about figuring everything out. Maybe it's about becoming more like our dogs, grounded, present, and deeply attuned. So that's gonna wrap me up for today. I also, interestingly enough, we did put in, I told you I would circle back to this. We did put in something interesting. Christy really wanted to do this. She said the way she put the verbiage was fantastic, but she asked it, can I get life coaching online, like via AI? And it was so fantastic. And I want to see, what did it say? Oh my gosh. I was so happy that it said it because um let's see. I'm sorry. The important thing was you cannot substitute human connection and real people. You see, I'm you. I see you in the video here. I'm telling you this. Um, let's see. Oh my goodness, I got by that. Um, don't know what to do with that one. But basically, it was talking about the benefits of having people. The reality is you can't just ask AI to coach you. You're not going to have the human aspect. We're not going to have the personality aspect. We're not going to have the synchronicity, you and I. I think there's a spiritual connection with a coach and a client. I truly do. When I coach, I'm 100% invested in your success because your success is my success. And I also am a very passionate person where I want to see everybody succeed. I do. I want everybody to be happy. And that was a big thing. And you can't get that from a non-emotional computer program. It's not going to be invested. I'm going to give you accountability. I'm going to give you structure. I'm going to give you um, the ability to reach out to me if you need it, in these urgent situations. I'm going to give you experiences that I had been through. That's why coaching is, in my opinion, so much different and better than traditional therapy. Yes, go to traditional therapy to find out what is the issue, but then come to a coach if you want to change it. And really AI is not set up to be a therapist or a life coach or a psychiatrist. So it to me is crucial. And we looked at, like I said, we ran it, and I'm so having a hard time finding that. I must not have printed that out. Christy will be so disappointed. But it really did say, I can help you with some methods, or I can help you with some ideas, but essentially you're getting a one-on-one human connection and attention when you get a coach. And there's nothing truer, and I know that all of my clients could attest to the fact that I was so invested in them living their best life. And that's just how I am and who I am. And when I get to go back to coaching, I would love to see all of you reach out for that. So, but until then, um, I want you to take care of yourself, take care of each other. My books are all online. My website has the books and has, my email information to get a hold of me, comment, leave suggestions. I will be taking guest requests later on when I heal from all of this lovely, lovely stuff. So I will be excited to get back to it. In the meantime, I'm just going to take care of me and get through day by day. And I'm just blessed that, hopefully my stuff is fixable, and I'm blessed I still get to do this. That's what I do every day. I wake up in just gratitude for what I can do. and instead of frustration at what I can't do. I'm not saying that's all the time because boy, I have had my moments, but I have family support, a wonderful husband and friends, and uh yeah, I couldn't be more happy. So reach out to me, say hi. You don't even have to be like, "Hey, Maureen, I have some information." No, just hi, Maureen, how you doing? My books, my dog is more enlightened than I am. My dog is my relationship coach. My dog Bexley, for the little guys, little kiddos. My dog Bexley is just like me, and my cat Grayson is not like me. So we're talking about same and different, and the beauty that we're all the same, and we all have emotions, and we can embrace each other's differences. So, I love you all. I miss you all. And I'm just looking forward to my birthday's coming up. So another trip around the sun, which is fantastic. Yay me. I made it through so far, all the things I needed to. The last one, I think that's why I have gratitude. The last surgery, I was about 10 minutes away from shall we say transitioning or passing away. I was not in a good way, and my poor husband, I think, is somewhat traumatized from that. But thank God I was in the hospital, or I would not be here at this moment. I was 10 minutes away from. I had a hemorrhage in my throat that would have collapsed my windpipe and would not have been good. So, yeah, I'm here. Can't get rid of me that easy. Can't get rid of me that easy. But I love you all. And until next week, I think I'll try to do another one, another moment with Maureen. I appreciate you all. And go to lifecoachmaureen.com. And thank you. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Most of all, take care of those furry babies. All right. I will see you next week. Mwah.